So far the Mishnah ideas that we covered, we covered what it takes to be a learner, what qualities it takes to become a learner for life. Humility, drive, determination, the idea of realizing that Torah is not meant to be just abstract and philosophical or just spiritual, that it's meant to be drawn down into life, into day-to-day reality. It's also meant to be practical. That was the first mission we discussed. The second one we discussed was about judgment and what does it mean? Don't judge someone till you walk in their shoes. And also, what does it mean to judge everyone favorably? Because those are two different missions that we were comparing and contrasting and kind of seeing where we stand in it. Like, what does it mean to not be judgmental? Can we ever get there? Is there a place for judgment in life? Obviously, God gave us this quality or this character trait or this skill or ability, and there's good in it and bad in it. How do we use it in the right way? So that was class number 2. Class number 3 was about Ohev Shalom, about Aaron. We were supposed to be like the disciples of Aaron. We were supposed to love peace, pursue peace, bring people closer to Torah, what that meant. What does it mean, the difference between loving peace and pursuing peace? And it also said love all creatures, which was interesting. Like even people who you think are creatures, you still have to love them. So what that means and how do we utilize that in our life? And last class, I'm trying to remember. Oh, okay. Anyone remember? The last class was about Lo alacha hamlacha l'gmor. It's not your job to finish the job. Like you can't solve all the problems, but you lo tapen chorin lehiva tamimena. But you're not exempt from. You can't ignore them. So what does that paradox mean? What does that mean in our lives? How do we take responsibility but don't take all the guilt or all the burden? How do we navigate it? All these are actually recorded and they're all online. So if you want to catch up, feel free at any point.
Oh, okay, good. I will.
I'll send you the link afterwards, but they're all there. If you want, like if you're bored and you want to listen to something, put it on double speed and go. So though I was told I actually apparently speak double speed. That's what I was told. I was teaching and the person who asked me to teach, there's this incredible program for teenagers and I was teaching it. She says, the next class, can you talk a little bit slower? I'm like, oh my gosh, you know what happens? I get passionate. And when I get passionate, I get energetic. When I get energetic, I just go faster, faster, faster.
Okay, the teenagers understand it.
Yeah, I hear you, but I was still asked to slow down and I was open to that. I like getting constructive feedback. So that's also one of the discussions we had. Oh, and one more mission. It wasn't in that mission, but it was one concept that we discussed in a mission that was a very big theme was get yourself a mentor, the value and role of a Rav or a mentor in life, and the value of good friends in life. Balance healthy friends, what do healthy relationships and friendships look like, what is a mentor's role? So that was also something we discussed kind of a little bit more in depth as well. So those are the ideas we've covered so far. Today's Mishnah, what I actually want to do, it's kind of an interesting one. And I really, before we dive into it, I really want to hear your thoughts on it. So I'm going to either pull it up. I'll do share screen, or if you have the book in front of you, it's page 84. We've been using a Mishnah book, but if not, because I do realize maybe not everyone has that book with them, I'll just hit share screen. And because I do have it up in here, I just taught this class to some college students. Obviously, it's so different teaching college students than women. So take a look at this Mishnah. Does anyone want to read it? Do you see it on my screen? Number 1. Do you see it, Sharon? Does everyone see it?
Yeah.
Just
Sharon.
Cheryl, do you mind reading it? Are you okay with reading it from the screen?
You bet. Akavia, the son of Mahalalel, would say, reflect upon 3 things and you will not come to the hands of transgression. Know from where you came, where you are going, and before whom you are destined to give a judgment and accounting. From where you came, from a putrid drop, where you are going, to a place of dust, maggots, and worms, and before whom you are destined to give a judgment and accounting, before the supreme King of Kings, the Holy One, blessed be He.
Okay, so this Mishnah, what are your impressions of it? It's an interesting one, as Mishnahs tend to be. Any impressions, instant impressions? Sharon, we're on page 84 of the book, if you have it. We just started a new Mishnah, and I was just, Cheryl, who we're so excited joined us today. It just read it for us. Anyone have any initial reaction to the Mishnah? Like, what's your initial impression of it?
Mine is that you don't want to just like roam through life. You want to kind of have an idea about who you are and, and kind of maybe why you're here, where you're going.
Awesome.
You don't need not just be, blown about by whatever wind blows you around.
Just not let circumstances or whatever just blow you here or there, but be an active player in your life.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's an interesting perspective. I mean, it makes sense. That's definitely a takeaway from here. Any other thoughts? Sharon, do you have the book or should I pull it up for you?
I'm not at home and I forgot to bring the book.
No, you're perfect. I'll put it up for you for a second so you can read it because it's an interesting one. Basically, Akavia Ben Mahalo. Do you see it now?
Yes.
What page is that?
It's 84 in our books.
All right. Thank you.
So Sharon, give me your thoughts on your impressions on this Mishnah once you read it.
Judgment accounted for the Supreme King of Kings, the Holy One.
Maybe not to jump into judgment.
Right.
On other people.
Yes. Okay, Sharon, you read it?
Yes. Oh, where
Perfect,
are you?
number one. All right, so I'm going to stop share so we're not distracted. Okay, any initial thoughts? I hear what you're saying about judgment. It's an interesting one that it jumps to that. Yeah. Any other thoughts about this Mishnah?
I'm still thinking.
Yeah, someone mentioned that she felt it was kind of seemed like a negative Mishnah. Like it had this like negative vibe or tone to it, which is interesting. It's an interesting take on it.
I think because of the words in Hebrew, it sounds a little bit negative.
Yeah. And the other also thing is like, why does it say lidei avera, like in the hand of an avera? Like, what's that about? Why wouldn't it say you won't do a sin? Your hand a sin? Like, what is that even talking about? It's kind of an interesting word, right? Like you won't, look at the word. Me'ayin basa, okay, hold on a second. Ataba lidei avera. Lidei means your hand, your yad. So these are like 3 instructions for how we can function efficiently and maximize our potential, not stumble, not trip, we want to live our best potential. So those are those 3 instructions. What's interesting is that the wording yad does see tipas rucha, like a small drop, like future drop. Just why is it giving us biology lessons? Like, well, we all letting us know where we all come from. We all know where we come from. There's something interesting about that wording, Sarah, any thoughts?
Mm-hmm. At first glance, just without looking at those, specific questions, it's something that I've heard in other cultures and in other ways, and it's to keep it in perspective. Like what the way I've heard it is, imagine that you're going to die tomorrow. Live every day as if it were your last.
Right. Probably an inspirational quote, or maybe a psychologist would say, like, what would you want people to think about you? What kind of mark do you want to have in this world? Yeah, 100%. That's for sure part of it. What's so interesting is that first we have to understand a little bit about Akavia ben Mahalo, because it's an interesting quote, but he was actually a really, really righteous guy. righteous sage. He was a contemporary of Hillel. He lived during the Second Temple period where there was an abundance of financial wealth, and he was kind of trying to keep people in check, right? Not to just focus on things that were just superficial or frivolous or seemingly unimportant. He's kind of trying to give an alignment, like, who are you, where you're headed, where you're going, zoom out, take a look at this. And we'll kind of dissect each of those 3 sections. And in it is so much depth, obviously, because it's Torah, so there's no limit to the depth that you can gain when you're learning Torah, right? Okay, so that's something interesting about Akavi ben Mahalel. We said who he was. It was actually described that when the Jews would come to bring, let's say, the Passover offering at the temple during his time, he shines during that time with his wisdom. So that means it wasn't just like, okay, he was wise in his study hall there, he was wise amongst his contemporaries. It was when everyone was gathered together, the whole family for the Paschal offering, the Talmud describes that he was shining with his wisdom, his purity, and his piety. Meaning he was wise, he had balance, obviously, clearly, and he was righteous, and also purity. So kind of there's knowing now a little bit about who he was, now kind of makes sense a little bit why he's giving that realignment, right? And what he's really kind of giving us a zoomed out perspective of our lives. But before we understand, because it's very easy to section off and understand where I come from, where I'm going, and where I'm going and what my goal is in life. Those are they're not hard for us to dissect and understand, and we'll jump into them. But what's interesting is to understand lidei avera. I won't, my hands, lidei avera, my hands won't even be involved, come to even be involved. So remember where this passage is coming from. This passage isn't saying, don't eat a cheeseburger. Because, right, that's in other parts of Mishnah, other parts of the Torah tell us do or don't do. This is kind of like the preventative measure you would take to avoid even getting to that place. That would be like don't go into McDonald's. Okay, that's a silly example maybe. Or the example I gave to the students, which I think makes a lot of sense. It's not saying don't drink or drive. Everyone knows we shouldn't drink or drive, right? It's saying when you go to a party or you're out drinking, make sure you have a designated driver. It's the preventative thing. It's like, don't even put your hands on the keys when you're drinking. That's what it's telling you. It's not telling you do or don't do, because that's not what this section of Mishnah is about. This section of Mishnah is about how and preventative. Remember we said siyag laTorah, it creates a boundary or a border to Torah. That's what this is talking about. So now that we understand that these are things that could prevent us from going down into our negative place, it's like, think to yourself of something that brings, let's say, a personality trait you have or a character flaw that you have. And I'm sure none of you have major ones, right? We all maybe one or two. And let's say there's certain things that are going to lead you into a negative space, right? Whether it's talking to a certain person or not getting enough sleep. Yes, as Sharon wrote, it's preparing the mindset. Exactly. I know my kids stayed up too late and I stayed up too late, and I know where this can go. So let me back it up and set myself up to succeed. So now that we understand where this falls out, it kind of makes sense. It's like, don't even put your hand in the ring. Don't even get there. Don't even go to them, because we all know once we're at that point, we're about to lose it or the kids are out, whatever. We all know how much harder it is to dial it back. So it's setting the boundary further so that we're able to, as Sharon said, set the mindset to succeed and to not stumble or to not struggle, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So now with that framework, we can kind of understand this Mishnah a little better, because really it's a very zoomed out perspective. So what does it mean, reflect on these things? So Maimonides, Rambam, we all know he's a philosopher, doctor, incredible sage, wrote a lot, a real contributor to Jewish thoughts. He actually describes that it's that really this is 3 different mindsets that cause a person to sin or cause a person to not live their best potential. So the first one, he says, know where you come from. That's keeping your arrogance in check. Guess what? We all come from the same place. Every single one of us. The same idea, DNA, just cells. We all come from that. So he's like saying, keep the arrogance. Maimonides is saying, let's keep the arrogance in check. Okay? The second idea is knowing about this world, that all that we may think is important, it's just a world. It's just mundane things, right? You ever heard something where you got so caught up or worked up about something and like you zoomed out for 10 seconds, you're like, oh my gosh, that was just like a bowl that broke. It was so not a big deal. It's just a thing, right? And so when we're saying, he's saying you're going to go into the earth with the dust, and we're all going to the same place. We're all human. Our corporal beings, our bodies, it's just a body. The world is just, the materialism is just materialism. And on the side here, there's an incredible, interesting story about a man who gave he was a very wealthy man, and he passed away, and he gave 2 wills out. First will was to be opened right after he passed away, and the second one was to be opened at the end of Shloshim. If you remember last week, 2 weeks ago, when we talked about Aaron, we talked about the idea of Shloshim, that in the Jewish mourning period, there's a real structure. We mark the different stages of the departure. We said there's, the funeral, there's Shiva, and then there's Shloshim, and then there's Yahrzeit. Shloshim means 30. It's 30 days after passing. We commemorate that person's life in a different thing. So we're a little bit in a different place from the grief, right? So this guy says, I'm giving 2 wills to my children. So will number 1 said that he wants to be buried in his socks. The kids want to fulfill his will. So they go to the burial society. We said, we have a strange request from my father. He wants to be buried in his socks. Now, if anyone knows anything about Jewish law, you can't be buried in your socks. As you came in, you go out. We all exit the same way in the same shrouds. No designer labels on the shrouds, right? No one has this one has a Gucci one and this one is a Old Navy one. The same thing. So it's right. Truth, right? So he says he wants to be buried in his socks, and the burial society says absolutely not. Jewish law, you want to be buried in a Jewish cemetery? It's not happening. No way, no how. They lied down the law, and now these kids feel terrible. They couldn't fulfill his last will. 30 days later, they open the second will. And he says, I'm glad you know now that no matter what you have in this material world, you can't take it with you, even a pair of socks. Now divide the money fairly, equally, and remember your friendship and this family is more important than any materialism in this world. And it's a powerful story. And the reason it's a powerful story is because, they asked, I'm not going to quote, there was a very famous wealthy man. They said, how much are you worth? He said, I'm not worth my bank accounts. I'm worth, I can't take it with me. I'm worth what I sent ahead. They said, sent ahead? What do you mean you sent ahead? He said, I'm worth all the tzedakah I gave. Money I can't take with me after 120, right? It's just a thing. He said, but I sent it ahead, meaning I used my materialism for why it's here in this world. So I sent it ahead. It's going to escort my soul on high. So all the good we do, we know the soul's here for a reason, which we'll talk about in the next section in a second. But I'm not worth what's in my bank account. What's my worth? We're all just humans. And so I think that this story really, really drives home a very powerful story, a very powerful idea. And Maimonides is saying, don't just live in the second. Don't just live in the moment. The material world that you have, it's just things. It's just things. And I think that, you look at when Hurricane Harvey hit Houston, man alive, people were just so relieved to be alive and have their family. Their homes were like, okay, it's a home. Of course, that doesn't mean it's not without trauma and pain and loss, of course, but it's a thing. And that's a kind of realignment. And the next section, as Maimonides will explain, is that when we reflect who we're going to give an accounting to after 120, it should keep us in check. That we're here for a reason, and we have to account for the time on this earth and say, like, okay, well, what were we doing with this time? What did I accomplish? Right? And I think, Sarah, you mentioned it. What do I want to be known for? What's my legacy in this world? And that's a really good question for a person to ask themselves. So that being said, I want to zoom in now a little bit deeper because this is kind of an overall overview, and that's Maimonides' perspective is great. Yes, keeping in mind those three things will really, really help us in life. But the truth is, who really are we? Where do we come from? And here's something so powerful is a mindset a discussion we've had in class in the past, that when we focus on who we are, you know, like this idea of YOLO, you know, if anyone heard the word YOLO, anyone here heard of it? It stands for you only live once. It's like, live in the moment. I'm going to go skydiving YOLO, or I'm going to be at this party YOLO. I'm going to do whatever. It's used a lot to dismiss and it's used as a really good excuse for a lot of behaviors that maybe we're like, YOLO, you know, just do it, right? But it's in essence, it sounds great. There's something not Jewish about it. Because yes, there's every day and we have to maximize every day. But this idea that it's only about here and now, no, it doesn't align. Because what is the Jewish perspective on who we are and why we're here? So we know we've said this in the past, but I feel like you can't learn this mission without reminding ourselves this idea. That often we think that we are bodies that happen to have a soul. Okay, there's Manya, I'm a human being, and I happen to have an neshama. But what does Judaism teach us? That we're souls that happen to come into bodies for a certain amount of time. And 120 years, let's say we live a long, beautiful, illustrious, life-fulfilling life. May all of us do so, and our children and those around us. Even if we have a very, very long life, 120 years on the spectrum of or comparison to infinite, how far is that? It's a drop.
As they say, nobody gets out of this world alive.
Yeah, right. So the idea is this kind of realignment, which is why it could seem a little bit more, but really it's just it's a refocus. It's saying, no. I'm here for a reason. My body and my soul are in this fusion, in this partnership to accomplish good. And we've talked about this in the past, the idea that in Kabbalah sees that the whole reason a soul descends into this world is, the Tanya says actually that a soul could descend into this world for 70 or 80 years and toil in this world just to do something good for someone else. Meaning our souls that are in heaven can't do a mitzvah. They need what? They need our bodies, right? A soul can't give tzedakah. A soul can't go feed the homeless. A soul can't use its mind to talk and to communicate or to empathize. The soul's a soul. It's a divine godly energy. The soul needs the body. Now, we've discussed in the past that not always is it so pleasant and exciting for a soul, right? That famous story I told you of like the soul that's about to be born. The angel's like, look, tomorrow's your, today's your day to be born. And the soul's like, no thanks. I saw what goes on down there, the fighting, the superficiality, the materialism. I am not, no thanks. I'm very happy here. Leave me alone. And the angel's like, listen, I want to tell you, I'm going to give you this body, and the hands are going to be able to give tzedakah, and you're going to be able to use your hands to light Shabbat candles, and you're going to be able to use your hands to make challah and nurture and nourish your family. You're going to be able to use your body to carry children and to bring children into the world. You're going to be able to use your mind to do wonderful things. You're going to be able, it's going to be incredible. And so the soul's like kind of like, oh, cool. Like, I'm going to buy into this. Sounds so, all right. It's about to be born, and suddenly what does it see? It sees a soul on its way up, beaten, bruised, on crutches, bandages. Well, it doesn't look so good. And so the soul goes, whoa, 1 second. What happened to him? What happened to this one? He's like, oh, I forgot to tell you. The body and the soul don't always agree. Okay? There's a battle. We know it. We live it. We live it daily. The battle between doing what I know I could do, what I should do, my potential, all of that. It's a challenge. But there's no doubt the body needs the soul, and the soul needs the body. Without the soul, the body's not alive, right? Actually, when someone gets ill and it weakens the body so the body can't anchor the soul anymore, can't hold on to the soul. That's what sickness does. It kind of says, okay, the soul is always wanting to grow and to do and to learn and to connect back above. The soul, as we said, and I'm actually going to show you 1 second. It's a simple visual, and I may have showed you in the past, but hang tight. We said in the past that a soul, what's a soul? Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam, that the soul of man is Ner Hashem, the light of God, is the soul of man. So if we look at this, okay, I mean, it's not, right, here's my soul. It's a soul, why it's compared to a flame. Now look, watch a soul. What's the nature of a soul? Or the nature of flames? They don't stand still. Always moving, right? Always, always moving. Always what? No matter which direction you put your candle, where's the soul going? Upward, always, always upward. No matter how you put it. I do this in Hebrew school with the kids and I show them different candles. So they see big ones, little ones. It doesn't matter what, we're big, we're little, I'm a fat candle, I'm a small candle, a skinny candle, a thin candle, an important candle, a birthday candle. We're all the same. We all have a soul. We have a divine soul. We have a godly soul. And when you hold it, no matter which direction you turn it, the light always goes up. And interestingly enough, we also know, right here, it's very convenient, my candle closet's right here. We also know that what can a soul do? It can ignite another, and it's not diminished. So when we light a yahrzeit candle, or we have in the front of a synagogue 5 flames, it's actually a reminder of the soul and the soul's power and the soul's potential. And when we see a flame, when we light a Shabbat candle, we're supposed to remind ourselves to always move upward, always grow, always go row, and always give. That's how we're hardwired. That's our primary self. Our secondary self is Manya, the Rebbitzin, or Manya, the cook, right? My primary self is I have this godly divine soul that has ability to give light and bring light into the world. And it's infinite and it lasts forever, right? And we have to have that perspective in order to understand that's where we come from. We don't just come from a putrid drop. Yeah, physically, biologically, that's where we come from. Spiritually, we're godly and divine. And that Yerida, that descent of the soul into this world, has a tzorach aliyah, propels us, is necessary for us to propel ourselves forward, our soul to a higher plane. And we said that it's a sign, the soul is not necessarily looking to be here in this world. And we actually discussed biologically, how do we know a child is alive? What's the first thing? That crying, when a baby is crying, we know they're alive. That's paralleling the echo or the cry of the soul saying, do I really have to be in this world? But the soul is here and the soul gives us life. And with that life and that we can bring light into the world. Sarah, I just saw that you wrote about yahrzeit candle. I think that's what you wrote, right? And I'm glad we reminded you because it's a gift to our neshama. Knowing now what we do about candles and souls, it's no wonder as Jews, we're kind of a little bit candle obsessed. Candlelight vigils, we light a yahrzeit candle, we have candles in the front of our synagogue. Every holiday we bring light into the world with a candle. There's a reason. So the next time you're lighting your Shabbat candle, remind yourself of that inner light that you have, right? That inner divine, holy, precious light that you have that is why we're here. So remember the story I told you of that student who decided they're going to opt out of Judaism. He tells me, listen, I think I'm going to opt out. I don't know if I really believe in God. I had a lot of negative Jewish experiences. Like, I don't know. I don't know if Judaism's for me. I'm like, listen, you should go to yeshiva. And he's like, hello, I just said I'm opting out. Why are you telling me to go study Torah in a yeshiva? Like, did you not hear me? Like, are you listening? And I was like, well, listen, I hate to break it to you, but you actually have this thing called a neshama, a soul, and it ain't going away. And if it doesn't knock at your door now, it will knock at your door when you're 20. And if it doesn't knock at your door when you're 20, maybe it will knock at your door when you're 60. Or maybe at 90, it'll go, hello, remember me? I'm here. Right? We can't forget it. That our soul knows our potential and our soul is forever. It's nitzchi. It's, how would you define that word? Netzach. It's eternal. Okay? It defies time and space. So there's no doubt that we are holy, godly, and divine, and we have that light within us, and which is why we're hardwired to do and to be good and bring light into the world. I know, Cheryl, you and I were talking about last week about ultimately bringing light into the world, that whatever we do, I think it was last week, right, Cheryl? Whatever we do, we can make a difference in other people's lives. And I got asked this question when one of the girls, she said, you said YOLO's not Jewish, and you're talking about souls and light. She said, well, where does superficiality have space in this world? And I thought it was such a good, honest question. And I thought there was something so powerful about her question, but what I really focused on is that really superficiality is, it's kind of a subjective phrase because it means different things to different people. What's superficial to me is not superficial to you, right? Mm-hmm. So I told her that the barometer that I like to use to measure in my life, whether something's really superficial or not, is I try to ask myself what my resources are, my time, my energy, my money, my time, like my, let's say in this case where I collide, it's my staffing, let's say, I try to look at my resources and I try to see how can I use them to do good. So if wasting my energy on something negative and silly is not going to take me to a good place, then I'm going to try to avoid it. And that doesn't mean I'm going to succeed. Still definitely a human being, but I think it's a good reminder to us is like, we're here for a reason. I think Cheryl, you mentioned that we're here for a reason. We have souls for a reason. Interestingly enough, you know, a lot of the students, if you recall, when Sophie passed away, it was a very eye-opening experience for a lot of students. This was the first time they had really experienced such a loss of someone they knew, someone their age, and they started to realize, whoa, life is actually short. And I know many of you may have your own personal experiences, right, where you've learned this lesson maybe through your own story. And I know in the past, Cheryl, you've been very open and real with all of us about your experiences and how much, you know, you learned and your children learned from whatever, you know, challenges came your way. And I think that we don't want to wait till we have a crisis to learn this lesson, right? We want to know that every day is valuable and every day is precious, and that there's no guarantees. So we have to appreciate and value who we are, why we're here. And yes, that means at times we have to ask ourselves, like, why am I here? You know, that's a really good question to ask ourselves. And sometimes that leads to the midlife crisis, like, wait, what am I doing here again? Right? You know, but we have to really re-question a lot of things. But with that, having this mindset really, 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 really helps. Sharon, what would you want to say? Just jump in and say it.
Oh, okay. Let me see. Sorry. So going back to the Shema, like when we're praying, so cognitively, I'm say to myself, okay, I want to pray. That's right. A part of the brain, but then, and you know my background, so I'm getting a little confused here.
Yes, sure, no worries.
It's probably a very simple question and I'm just making it difficult. So when we say to ourselves, I want to pray, and you pray, how much of that is the Neshama telling you or guiding you? And how do you decide what, I'm a little confused about that combination.
Okay, so I'm not going to give prayer as the example. I'm going to use a different example and you'll be able to hopefully translate it. What we have to remember in essence is there's a partnership between body and soul. And the soul needs the body to accomplish its goals, because the soul in heaven cannot pray. It can't open a siddur and say words, okay? It's limited. So the body needs, the soul needs the body in order to accomplish its goals and bring light into the world. And the body benefits from the energy and divinity and holiness that the soul gives it. Now, remember, we said in Tanya, our souls actually have two, there's a godly soul and an animal soul.
Yes.
So if you're using prayer, sorry kids, I can't take care of you now, or sorry husband, I know you need me, but I'm in prayer right now, I'm taking care of my spirituality, then that's probably coming from the animal soul, right? If you're using prayer to stick it to someone, I actually had a student whose parent was, years ago, his parent was an atheist, and they decided they're going to become religious, and it came out that it was really to get back at their parent. And I'm like, that is literally not why you should keep kosher. Like, fix your relationship with your parent first. You know what I'm saying? Like, yes. We have to be careful not to use holiness and godliness as our war banner, right? Which is, I guess, when it says we all come from the same DNA, not the same DNA, but the same DNA, genetic material. We all come from genetic material, all come from a future drop. It's kind of saying, hello, we all come from the same place. Like, don't do that holier than thou thing. So I think for yourself, when it comes to mitzvah, if you're connecting, a mitzvah is a bond. It's a connection between you and God. So prayer is a mitzvah. It's an opportunity to connect. And really, prayer sometimes gives us a realignment, and it helps us reflect, and it helps us align and connect in a deeper way. So it's really also a gift, but there's no doubt that it's nourishing our soul. But if you're nourishing your soul, your mind, body, and soul, you're not one or the other. It's not like there's just my mind.
No.
You can't pray with just your mind.
No.
All right. You need your body. You need your vocal cords, right? You need other parts. You need, how much, how many muscle, how many parts of the body, I think, like 13 parts of your body it takes to like talk, the amount of the mechanism. So you need your physical body, but there's no doubt that it's connecting your soul. So really, I would say it's doing all three. I don't know if that's an answer.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes. It's I don't know, until this conversation, I never really thought about it. Like, it's literally deep.
Think of it, it's happening on 3 levels. Anything that's happening physically, there's a spiritual parallel.
Yes.
So when you're connecting in prayer verbally, you're carving out time. That's a construct. It's a construct, right? You're carving out space. You're carving out intentionality. You're using your physical body, your eyes, your mouth, your mind. So, and what you're doing is you're connecting to your soul. So really prayer is powerful.
One other question.
It's not one or the other.
No. But how, I'm getting stuck. Like, is it the neshama that pushes you to want to pray?
Our godly soul pushes us to do things that are selfless and transient and good. Our animal soul's like, sleep a little later. You could pray tomorrow. You prayed yesterday. Come on. How much does God need to hear from you anyway? He knows you anyway. That's your animal soul.
Yeah. So,
and your animal soul also comes from God.
Right. But
we need that self-preserving animal soul.
Okay.
Does that make sense a little bit more?
No, it does. I didn't know if maybe Sarah understands, like, never mind. It's
it may not translate in the field of psychology, because there may be different terms.
Okay. I think that's probably what it is. But no, it does. It makes complete sense what you're saying. I'm sorry for digressing.
No, Sharon, we're learning together. We're learning as people. This is not like I'm a professor who has a syllabus of this amount of material to cover. We're sharing, we're learning. And if you have that question, Chancellor, someone else may have the question. And I want us to be able to pause, reflect, discuss. That's part of this.
I forget that you're right. We don't have a syllabus. I forgot. You're so
no
funny.
Syllabus. Very freeing. Very freeing.
Thank you, Manya.
And we can continue this mission next week. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're not going anywhere. Let's be honest.
No.
We're going nowhere.
We're going nowhere.
So, I mean, we're going places in life, but we're not like physically. I got a report from Google Maps of my travels in June. It's like, here's your June travels. And it was 9 steps. You've been to 2 cities. Guess which cities? Bryan and College Station. And it showed like 9 stops in Bryan and College Station in the month of June. I'm like, woohoo. I think last year I was in like 5 states. The year before I was in Israel. Like, yeah, go. I was like, the irony of it was like very, very glaring. It was really kind of funny. I also didn't know that I get reports from Google with my travels. A little creepy, but okay. Probably when I said, yes, I want this app on my phone, I agreed to that. Than everything else. Okay, so knowing that we are divine, the reason it's important to know where we come from is knowing that we're divine and we're holy and we have a soul, and the soul is divine and holy. Kind of that circles around to the full circle of where I come from while I'm here and where am I going. Meaning I want to return that soul in good shape. I want to return that soul having brought light into the world. God's giving us this divine soul in this time in this world. We don't want to be like, oh yeah, sorry, I know you gave it to me, but I didn't really, I don't know. I was like at the beach all day. You know what I mean? You want to use it for good. And of course it's time in the beach, and no one should, hell we get to a beach, like enjoy it, But my point is that like, we want to be able to use that energy and that divinity, that holiness that we have within us for good. The other thing that I saw, a beautiful explanation that shows kind of where do I come from? And it says, where do you come from? And it showed this, and I'm going to just type it because it's easier to type it. So we're known as the children of Israel, right? We're known as B'nai Yisrael. So this beautiful explanation, I'm going to just type it so we can all see it very visually in the chat box. So Yisrael, Yud, Sin, Resh, Aleph, Lamed. So the Yud actually stands for Yaakov and Yitzchak, Isaac and Jacob. Doesn't translate in English, obviously. The Sin stands for Sarah, Imenu. Resh stands for Rivka and Rachel, Rachel and Leah, and Rachel and Rebecca, not Leah. The Aleph stands for Abraham, and the Lamed stands for Leah. But who do we come from? We come from a long line of divine awesomeness, every single one of us. And I want to show you a video that's brief, but I think it's so powerful. So George Rohr is a philanthropist who actually helped us purchase our Chabad house. He really heavily invested in building Chabads on campus. He said for him, he saw it as the best bang for his buck. He said, I can, invest. He says, I'm an investor. I like to invest where my money's going to go far. So I invest in Chabad. That's what his mindset was. He said, I know it's not going to big salaries and overhead. I know it's going to on the ground affect change. And I want to share with you this brief video. And I think it's super powerful. And it's about 4 minutes, but I think it's worthwhile.
When I moved to New York and got married, I started a beginner's minyan at our shul here in Manhattan. It was basically an introductory service for Jewish adults that may or may not have had the benefit of a Jewish education. We launched it on Rosh Hashanah because we thought that was an auspicious time to try and attract people and so forth. And I was leading it with not a great deal of preparation, but nevertheless, I did my best to lead it. And it turned out to have been a success. I remember, as I always did every year, going to visit the Rebbe for Lekach between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And always long lines. Lekach time was no exception, and you could see people coming to him and expressing their own needs and their own worries and requests for advice, requests for blessings and so forth. Everybody asking and asking and asking the Rebbe for things. I thought to myself, this year I'm going to be different. I'm going to give the Rebbe some nachas. I'm going to give him some good news and make him happy and proud and smile and especially make him proud of me.
I'd like to let the Rebbe know, I hope he has some nachas from the following. This Rosh Hashanah in our shul, I started a minyan for beginners who don't know anything. We had 200 people. 200. Rosh Hashanah, and Yetz Hashem for Yom Kippur we'll have also. And the Shabbos, we started the first regular Shabbos, we had about 50 people. Shabbos, last Shabbos. People without any background to start learning a little bit about Yiddishkeit. And I'd like the Rebbe's bracha that we should continue.
And I expected a big yasher koach from the Rebbe. I expected the Rebbe to give me a high five and to congratulate me and so forth. When I said the words Jews without any Jewish background, the Rebbe's smile disappeared. And he looked at me with his piercing blue eyes, and I knew that I had said something very, very wrong. And I didn't know what.
He'll explain to all these people they had a real background of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yankee. And so the Rivki Rochel. That's it for you, and that's for the people who have no background.
The Rebbe was saying, this is royalty you're talking about. Not Jews without any background. It's royalty. And that was the Rebbe for every Jew. For the Rebbe was royalty.
We were, I should have mentioned, but everybody counted, and that's the important thing.
He said I was emes. At that point, it pulled me right.
Okay, stop share because the other part is related to actually a video we watched in the past that I told you that we've seen in the past. So it's part of a 3-part story of different people telling their story. Why does that resonate so much with me? Because yes, this mission is meant to give us perspective, but that perspective is also, you know how when there's 2 ways to approach your child, let's say, who's struggling with a certain behavior. Option 1 is to go from a place of, what are you doing and how could you do this? And, I don't understand, we raised you better. That's one approach. But if we can go from the place of you are special, you are holy, you are gold, you are light, you have a neshama. Hashem needs you. The world needs you. Then we lift up the child and we say, this is the bar I see you by. Meet it. Really, the Kabbalah and Chassidus teaches us that's what this mission is saying. The mission is saying you are a godly soul. You are holy. Yes, life is fleeting. We all know that. You know, we all understand how within a second, we don't know what tomorrow brings. We all know we can't bring our wealth with us. We can't bring our materialism with us. We're not our houses or our chairs. That's not who we are. It doesn't mean we shouldn't enjoy our homes and our chairs. I'm a big fan. Enjoy your home and enjoy life and enjoy the material things. But let's use our material things to bring goodness into the world, right? And that's how we lift up the materialism that we have in this world. And so there's something so powerful about this mission of a realignment. Who am I? Why am I here? And I think really, Cheryl, you hit the nail on the head. But that's where we come from. That's our lineage. It's not like I'm this kind of Jew or that kind of Jew. And I think actually, really that's how, and I've said this in the past, but really that's how the Rebbe raised us as his Chassidim to see people in this world. Not a good Jew, a bad Jew, a this Jew, a that Jew. Royalty, gold. Once, and the Rebbe was giving dollars, an older woman stopped online. She said, how do you stand for hours? You know, you're in your 90s. How do you do this? And he said, when you're counting diamonds, you don't get tired. You know? So I think this mindset and this perspective is something we have to keep in mind. Yes, know where we come from. Yes, know that ultimately we're going, but and know that we're here for a reason. That at the end of the day, God's going to want to know, did you maximize the gifts I gave you? Remember the story we said about Rebbe Zosha? Don't worry that you're not like Queen Esther or Moses. Got to be you. Got to be the best you can be. And I think if we can live that and we could teach it to our children, goodness gracious, the world will be uplifted. Because our souls are here for a reason, that's for sure. The people we meet in life, you know, and we talk about this often. Like, I don't feel like anyone who's come, you know, and through our path in life is there for no reason. Baal Shem Tov teaches every single person we're here for a reason. So the interactions we have, the people we meet. So yeah, know where I come from is really important. But just as important as knowing where I'm coming from is knowing where I'm going. And that's really about setting goals. And I think someone mentioned that in the beginning, because if I don't have any goals, then what am I doing? I'm spinning my wheels, right? Like, it's like trying to go on a road trip with not entering anything in the GPS. Great, you're not going to get anywhere, right? Or you're not going to get where you want to go. So the importance of having goals of what I want to accomplish in this world, what I want as Sarah mentioned, my legacy, my identity to be, really checking in with that. And chances are we don't want our legacy or our identity to be what kind of shoes we wore, right? We want it to be something grander than that. Those shoes are important. I like shoes. Put that out there.
Is it Manya in Jeremias? I don't know how to say this. I don't remember in English what it is, but the prophet Jeremias said that a people without a vision perish.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. We have to have a goal and a perspective and a vision of where we're headed. I just finished this book called The Secret of Chabad. It's actually an incredible book. If anyone wants to borrow from me, you can get it on Kindle. It's The Secret of Chabad. I'm Chabad all my life, and I found it fascinating because it was historically interesting. It talks about, you know, Chabad and Russia, Chabad in the United States, Chabad's role in the state of Israel, starting Chabad's role within the communist government. It's really a cool read if you enjoy that kind of book. And one of the things that it discusses is how when the Rebbe passed away, that everyone was like, okay, Chabad's done. Like, there's no leader. How could a Hasidic group live without a leader? But what the Rebbe did give his Hasidim, and when the Rebbe passed away, there's maybe 12 or 1,300 shluchim around the world. Now there's over 5,000. And there's probably another 1,000 waiting to go open a center somewhere in the world. Truly. If tomorrow I had the financial means to bring another couple down here, I would have to choose between 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people who would be ready to come. And it's 26 years since the Rebbe passed away. And the reason why was because that vision, the goal, and the Rebbe mapped it out in the beginning of his leadership. He said the goal is Mashiach or bust. The goal is real tikkun olam, really completing this world and bringing light and goodness into this world wherever we are. So you're right, without a vision, we can't be alive. And that's why the Jewish people we're still here, because we still have a role and a job. And God said, I need you as partners to bring light and goodness and elevate the material world. So yeah, we have that goal very, very clear. The Torah gives it to us, Kabbalah gives it to us, and our own personal lives, we can find it, and we can also help our children find that for themselves. I think that's also a huge key factor in this. You know, there's a beautiful story of Rav Mendel Futterfass, and I may have mentioned him to you. He was in the Russian gulags for I think 12 years, 15 years, a long time in Siberia, and he met a tightrope walker, and he asked the tightrope walker, like, how do you do it? How do you go between two tall buildings, you know, these skyscrapers? How do you do it? And the tightrope walker said to him, I focus on my goal. I focus on the fact that I need to get to that building across that way. And I keep my focus on what my goal is so I don't fall to the right or to the left. So he asked, the tightrope walker turns the tables and asks Rav Mendel, what do you think the hardest part is? And Rav Mendel answered, when you have to turn around and head back. He said, yes, that moment where I have to turn around, because at that moment I lose sight of my goal. And that's where I'm at risk of falling. And I think for each and every one of us, we have goals. We want to accomplish goals, right? And those goals could be as big as like what I want my legacy to be, or as small as, you know, I really want to make sure that I'm exercising this week. That's an important goal. We can't diminish those goals, right? They could be as big or small. But when we lose sight of that goal, that's when we can lose ourselves in a sense. So this mission is really, really loaded with some solid life advice.
Or when we've reached one goal and it's time to refocus for the next one.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
People get depressed.
Yeah. You're saying when we accomplish a goal and then now we're like, okay, I'm done, now what? Right, but then we have to remember that if we're here for a reason and the world still needs us, right? So the world needs you. Look, Sarah, you got here, you thought you were done with psychology. Surprise! The world still needs you, right?
Yeah.
You're like, okay, I'm finished, retired. Yeah, not so fast. You've been making such a difference in everyone's lives, right?
Hope so.
You have. I know so. So with that, I hope this mission offers something to you that you can pull away for your life. I know that Sarah, maybe, so Sarah and I, we got beautiful feedback from the form, and Sarah feels like she has, you know, what to teach us and to continue learning with us. Sarah, are we ready for tomorrow to kick it up?
We can be. I have to say that after doing a session of Pirkei Avos, I feel very humbled. I feel like, what do I have to offer? It's all here. Yeah, I mean, it's right here.
Right. I think that, yes. Okay. First of all, I think you're right that Torah gives us so much, but I think that you have a gift, the way you share and your clarity. And I really think it would be a shame not to have people benefit from it. It's my opinion.
If people are feeling there's a need, I think, you know.
Darren just gave a gig'em, so I think that's not her fat showing off that she went to, you know, Aguilar. She was in Aguilar. I think that was it. Yes.
I mean, what I can contribute is that on top of this, because none of what I have contradicts any of this, on top of this, it can be more specific to individual questions, to what people specifically have going on in their lives, if they're comfortable sharing. But I don't.
You can also share and not record. That's always an option.
Okay.
Always. It does not need to be recorded at all.